In the previous video, we asked the question, what is money? It's a complex question, and we won't be able to answer it all at once. The intention behind making these videos is to build up an understanding of money's functions, dynamics, and consequences in a step-by-step manner, skipping over nothing and taking nothing for granted. As I expressed in the first video, it's my belief that anyone who's willing to make the effort can achieve an understanding of the basics of money. Furthermore, I believe it's our responsibility to do so. It's not a subject that can or should be left to the experts. Rather, in order to ensure that our monetary system reflects the values we all wish to see manifested in the world, we all must become experts on money. If asked to define money, most economists would give a list of 3 or more related functions. Today, we're going to focus exclusively on money's function as a medium of exchange. As a sneak preview of what we're building toward, I'll state that it's my belief, as well as that of Silvio Gesell, that this function of money is by far the most important. In fact, I would go so far as to say that it's the only legitimate function of money. But that's getting ahead of ourselves. We'll return to this point after we've developed a clear understanding of some other basic concepts. So, what is a medium of exchange and why is it important? The necessity for a medium of exchange arises from the basic economic principle called the division of labor. The division of labor is the source of the vast majority of wealth that exists on Earth. Primitive man in the state of nature obviously has the option of self-sufficient production. He can attempt to single-handedly provide for all of his needs. However, self-sufficiency is extraordinarily difficult and perilous. Operating alone in nature, a solitary individual is essentially perpetually just trying to survive. Providing oneself with food, drink, and protection from the elements is a full-time job. Self-sufficient economic production leaves little, if any, free time or excess resources. It's a pure battle for survival. If this were the only mode of production, it's doubtful that man would have ever emerged from the wilderness. He would have never been able to build capital on any significant scale and would have just remained a very intelligent monkey. The division of labor is what allowed mankind to move beyond subsistence-level production. Probably from the very earliest forms of human community, people realized that they can create a larger overall pool of resources if individual members of the community specialize in specific areas of production. Adam Smith famously illustrated this concept in The Wealth of Nations. In Volume 1, Chapter 1, Smith describes the working of a pin factory. He writes, "To take an example from a very trifling manufacture, but one in which the division of labor has been very often taken notice of, the trade of the pin maker, a workman not educated to this business, nor acquainted with the use of the machinery employed in it, could scarce, perhaps with his utmost industry, make 1 pin in a day, and certainly could not make 20. But in the way in which this business is now carried on, not only the whole work is a particular trade, but it is divided into a number of branches, of which the greater part are likewise particular trades. One man draws out the wire, another straightens it, a third cuts it, a fourth points it, a fifth grinds it at the top for receiving the head. To make the head requires 2 or 3 distinct operations. To put it on is a peculiar business. To whiten the pins is another. It is even a trade by itself to put them into the paper. And the important business of making a pin is, in this manner, divided into about 18 distinct operations, which, in some manufactories, are all performed by distinct hands, though in others, the same man will sometimes perform 2 or 3 of them. I have seen a small manufactory of this kind where 10 men only were employed, and where some of them consequently performed 2 or 3 distinct operations. But though they were very poor and therefore but indifferently accommodated with the necessary machinery, they could, when they exerted themselves, make among them about 12 pounds of pins in a day. There are in a pound upwards of 4,000 pins of a middling size. Those 10 persons, therefore, could make among them upward of 48,000 pins in a day. Each person, therefore, making a 10th part of 48,000 pins might be considered as making 4,800 pins in a day. But if they had all wrought separately and independently, and without any of them having been educated to this peculiar business, they certainly could not each of them have made 20, perhaps not 1 pin in a day. That is certainly not the 240th, and perhaps not the 4,800th part of what they are at present capable of performing in consequence of a proper division and combination of their different operations. Smith deliberately chose a quote-unquote trifling manufacture because it illustrates the principle very effectively. One man working alone cannot make 20 pins in a day. But by working together, a small group of people can multiply the fruits of their labor by a factor of hundreds or thousands. This is the engine that provides us with the food we eat, the clothes we wear, the houses we live in, the cars we drive. If the above example illustrates the power of collaborative production with something as simple as a pin, can we even conceive of the power of the division of labor with something as complex as the smartphone in your pocket? One person working alone for a lifetime couldn't come close to producing a smartphone, yet we can walk into a store and with the wages we earn in less than a week, we can purchase this product of massively collaborative production. When Barack Obama, perhaps clumsily, spoke the words, "You didn't build that," he was expressing a valid and essential economic truth. 99% of all of the products and services we use would not exist in the absence of the division of labor. If the owner of a pin factory couldn't produce 1/10 of 1% of the output of his factory by working alone, just imagine what percentage of the output of Amazon or Tesla could be said to be the direct product of the efforts of Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk. The percentage is so small as to effectively be zero. So essentially, all of the output generated by modern forms of production owes its existence to large-scale collaboration via the principle of division of labor. So now, let's think about how the division of labor functions in a pre-monetary economy. How can people exchange goods and services in such a way that they are freed up from the demands of basic survival, thereby enabling them to focus on one particular productive function and reap the massive efficiencies inherent in collaborative production? Clearly, barter is one possibility. There are other possibilities as well. For example, slavery would be another way to implement the division of labor. But among free people, barter is the most natural and effective way for a community to coordinate its efforts and reap the rewards of collaborative production. As long as there's no coercion involved, most people would agree that barter is a fair system. In order for a barter transaction to occur, both parties must agree that they are receiving something of equal or greater value to them than what they're giving in exchange. If both sides don't view a potential exchange as beneficial, there will be no transaction. The problem with barter is that it limits the scope, scale, and circumstances in which economic exchange can take place. For example, if you have a milk cow and I have an egg-laying chicken, chances are that we can negotiate a mutually beneficial exchange, and both of us will be better off than if each of us had to feed and care for both cows and chickens. So barter allows us both to reap the benefits of the division of labor. But what happens if I want your eggs, but you don't need any milk? Let's say you want corn. A neighbor of ours grows corn, but unfortunately he doesn't want any of your eggs. Let's say he wants milk from my cow. Clearly, if barter is the only form of exchange available to us, we're not easily or conveniently able to make mutually beneficial exchanges. In fact, barter rules out the vast majority of possible exchanges. And this is where money comes in. Money allows the number and type of possible exchanges to multiply exponentially in comparison with barter. Using money, I can buy your eggs. You can then use the proceeds to buy corn from the neighbor, and he can use the money he receives to buy my milk. Money allows the division of labor to expand far beyond what can be accomplished via barter, and we're all better off as a result. Now, extend this analysis to something as complex as an automobile or a smartphone, or even a pin. Such things would almost certainly never even exist if we had to rely exclusively on barter to facilitate economic exchange. Take a look around you and ask yourself which of the items you use and enjoy on a daily basis would be attainable by pure barter. If money ceased to exist, how would you exchange the goods and services you produce for the goods and services you need to live? If money ceased to exist, would you even survive? It's probably not an exaggeration to say that 99% of everything we buy, use, or consume on a daily basis owes its existence to money. Or, more precisely, none of those things would exist if we didn't have a medium of exchange. Therefore, is it not accurate to say that the invention of a medium of exchange was the most important invention in human history? If 99% of all the things we need, use, and enjoy owe their existence to a medium of exchange, it seems like the most obvious truth imaginable. What other human invention can even come close in terms of its usefulness? So let's summarize the points we've covered today. First, we established that the most basic form of economic activity is individual self-sufficient production. Next, we developed the concept of the division of labor, and we observed that this is what enables humanity to progress beyond a primitive, solitary struggle for survival. We then established that the division of labor is responsible for virtually all of the goods and services we use in modern life. We then considered the fact that the division of labor necessitates economic exchange. If the human race wants to progress beyond brute survival, we must use some mechanism to exchange the goods and services produced through the division of labor. Next, we looked at the most basic form of exchange between free people, which is barter. We established that barter is essentially fair, but it's very limited in terms of the types of economic exchange it makes possible. We then saw how the invention of a medium of exchange allows the division of labor to expand exponentially beyond what would be possible via barter. And we observed that the vast majority of the goods and services we use on a daily basis depend on the existence of a medium of exchange. This brings us to a convenient stopping point. In our next video, we'll look at the other functions of money and how they interact with its function as a medium of exchange. Thanks for watching.